Greetings, and I welcome everyone who has joined us here at Ukraine Media Center. We welcome Henadiy Ryabtsev, our next speaker, who is an energy expert. So, Gennady, let us talk about the embargo on Russian petroleum products, on Russian fuel. We recently heard a statement from Germany that they will no longer use Russian oil from December 31st this year. So do you think it's possible to have the total ban on Russian fuel in Europe? Thank you. So, as a response to the Russian invasion to Ukraine, the United States, Canada, Australia, and the European Union have announced the implementation of the embargo. This embargo will be on both crude oil and petroleum products, and it will start from the 5th of December on oil and 5th of February next year on petroleum products. The effect of this probably will be long-standing. We can talk about the end of the 2024. This is when the impact will be tangible, and it will be long-lasting, but it will not be definite. Why? Because after this ban on February the 5th, only 43% of the Russian export will be banned. This is about 3% of the global consumption. And as other producers will not increase the production to compensate for this ban, the prices on oil and they can grow after these first results, after the first implementation of this embargo. This growth can be measured as $150 per barrel, which means that petroleum products in Europe can get more expensive. And in the EU, the growth of retail prices would be not as high because over 60% of the price structure is taxes. But in the states where the share of taxes and the price is not that high, like Ukraine, then the price growth can be even more dire. Also, a consequence for Ukraine would be the loss of $130 million of annual income, which we get for the transit of petroleum products through our territory. So all these consequences can also lead to the lack of fuel in the Ukrainian market. Through the growth of prices, the Russian Federation, and in this year and the next year, Russia will be getting more revenue from its own export than planned. However, this will not really hamper the federal budget of the Russian Federation, because it was constructed on presuming the Urals is $44 per barrel. Now the oil is sold at $80 per barrel, well, 78. But despite the fact that this year and next year Russia will be getting more than planned, its income will come down, because the alternative markets of China, India, and other states will be able to get only a quarter of the Russian export, the quarter of the volumes which are banned. So this will lead to the following. The production in the Russian Federation, crude oil production, will be decreased because it's not possible to store crude oil and they don't have enough processing capacity. So most probably the they will cut production 22-25% as compared to 2021. And the export products will not be consumed in the Russian Federation because 75% of them are crude materials. So this will lead to the decrease of the refinery volumes by 25%. To stimulate demand in alternative markets, Russian Federation will offer the discount of 30 to 40% for the petroleum products. However, when the Russian commodities are sold, shadow schemes would not be as widespread as sometimes stated in the Western media, because, well, the buyers of this oil will carry significant reputation risks, and also they might be eligible for secondary sanctions. So, to summarize, the losses of the Russian Federation from this embargo will not be able to cut its income in such a way that it stops financing war in Ukraine. So what should be done in order to change the situation for the better for Ukraine and its allies? First of all, in order to cut the financial stream which Russia pours into the war, Ukrainian partners should cap the price at $35 per barrel of Russian oil. Also, they should not allow the re-export of the Russian petroleum products to the EU and US through third-party companies in order to avoid the fuel shortage in Ukraine. There should be a scheme which allows the refining of Ukrainian crude oil in Slovakian refineries. The Druzhba pipeline can be used for these products in 2023. Also, the increase of production of gas condensate can be happening, and also this commodity can be sent to the EU for refining. Also, this raw material can be processed in Ukraine, but for this we need to have these mini refineries once again under strict control, avoiding the concentration of large quantities of the oil and petroleum products in different locations, to avoid targeting these mini refineries. Also, one should facilitate direct mid-term and long-term contracts for fixed volumes of fuel between the refineries in the EU and fuel market operators. Leasing contracts like oil stock tickets should be concluded so that the fuel is reserved in oil depots on the border with Ukraine. Also, efficient spending of current fuel should be implemented through different measures. The optimization of the use of different products. Also, lower octane number fuel should be imported, and also mixed fuel with ethanol and biodiesel should be important. Here we should remember the wide capacity of Ukrainian ethanol factories. We can produce a lot. Also, due to the limitation of the export on grains and oil, there are additional volumes of grain and oil crops, and they can be processed in these ethanol factories. They can be processed to bioethanol and biodiesel. Of course, these mixture fuels cannot be used for all the vehicles. That's why we need to have specific guidelines on how these fuels are used, and there should be a specific list of vehicles which can use this mixture of fuels without any damage to the fuel systems. Also, to help with the fuel market saturation, one should avoid interpersonal conflicts which can limit the supply of petroleum products from Hungary, in particular through the Prikarapat-Zahid Trans pipeline in reverse mode, because we've seen some strange rhetorics from certain officials aimed at discrediting the leadership of Hungary in the eyes of I don't know whom, but that rhetoric, the anti-Hungarian rhetoric, can well, lead to the impossibility of importing petroleum products from Hungary to Ukraine. They will not be reaching the consumers because Hungary will just not export those volumes if this rhetoric by the Ukrainian officials continues. Well, this is what's implemented, and the consequences which we are receiving from this embargo are like this. Thank you. So when we talk about the production of oil, in your opinion, are the negotiations with the countries which can potentially substitute Russian oil in the international market effective? Well, if we talk about the essential problems with engaging additional volumes of crude oil, there are no issues with that in the international market. Unfortunately, high prices on crude oil were about 3/4 is the speculative component. It is beneficial for the oil exporting countries. When we talk about the OPEC, they are not really increasing the production and not increasing the quotas set at the latest meeting of OPEC+. Also, the United States, if they wish, can essentially increase the production of crude oil in its own territory, but we do not see essential changes with this, and the growth of our production in the US. Also, a large share of statements which we hear in the market, they actually stimulate the growth of the prices. For example, international corporations said that, well, oil can go up to 380 and more dollars per barrel if the Russian Federation stops supplying energy at all. Well, those traders who work in the international commodity markets, well, they follow course, and as the result we see the increase in oil prices, which does not help reflect the actual supply and demand ratio. So here it all depends on the wish of the United States of America to regain control over this trading in these electronic trading areas located in the US. So those so if these traders would be limited in their use, we will see the quotings not at the current of $105 per barrel, but about $45 per barrel, which actually corresponds to the price of oil based on supply and demand. Dear colleagues, any questions? Hello, this is Ukrinform. Can you please tell us about the perspectives of making Ukrainian oil production cheaper? Do you mean crude oil or petroleum products? I think it's about petroleum products. Indeed, because, well, we can't decrease the cost of oil production. And we do have a problem with this. As our refineries have been destroyed, the Kremenchuk and Lysychansk refineries, now the oil is only processed on these mini refineries. So, of course, it's not enough for the internal component. Ukraine is now 100% dependent on the supplies of petroleum products from abroad, which means that the cost of petroleum is only measured by the procurement cost of the fuel. The procurement is happening mostly with Lithuanian, Slovakian, Polish, Romanian producers, and the structure of the price in Ukraine after the excise has been cancelled and the VAT went down from 20 to 7%. Well, it depends only on the cost of the fuel plus the logistic expenses. And we see how the zones of pricing are formed when the petroleum products are cheaper on the western border, and the further it is from the western border, the more expensive they are. The highest problem is happening next to combat operations, because the traders are not risking delivering the petroleum products there. So there, they are just sold from trucks owned by individual businessmen, and the prices there, of course, are several times different from what we see in Kiev, for example. The scope of diesel supply to Ukraine is stable. It covers all the demand in the market, and this has helped us decrease the price on this type of fuel. But there are still issues with petrol because there is a shortage in the European market. So we expect further decrease with the diesel fuel price, probably 5%, but we cannot expect the same from petrol, from gasoline. So car owners which use two types of fuel, for example, who use LPG and petrol, they have good perspectives with liquefied gas and propane. Maybe because in the latest weeks it also goes down, because, well, it's a seasonal product, and those refineries which are producing it are now targeting the car market. But this will change as soon as temperature drops, because liquefied gas in winter is a deficit in Ukraine, because it's used for boilers in Poland, in Turkey, and well, most of the volumes will go there. So now the situation is quite stable with diesel, and the prices are quite stable, with the possibility of some shortage in the nearest future. There is a certain lack of petrol, especially when we talk about the left bank of Dnieper. That's why the prices most probably will not go down there. And we have the decrease of prices on liquefied petroleum gas, which is quite actively supplied to gas stations in the right bank of Ukraine and in Kiev Oblast. Thank you. Thank you so much. We had Henadiy Ryabtsev, the expert on energy. Thanks for joining. And I would like to remind you that at 2:30 we'll have the spokesperson of the Ukrainian Air Force, and we will talk